Okay, so in the last example we ended off with, or in the last video, we stopped with filling out this chart for the standard form for the equation of an ellipse centered at 0, 0. And remember we said you could have a horizontal centered where you have your major axis is your x-axis, or you could have a vertical ellipse where your major axis is your y-axis. So going to the next example here, they want us to write the equation in standard form for an ellipse with center 0, 0, and the given information is on the graph below. So we're going to analyze this graph and see what information we can make of it. So first we want to identify, this hint isn't really helpful, so we can cross it off. We want to choose the appropriate form of the equation. So is it longer on the x-axis or the y-axis? And we can tell that just by looking at the graph. And this graph is clearly longer on the x-axis. The other way we could do it is by looking at the points given to us. Now it's very clear that they give us the focus and they give us this point on the x-axis. But I know that the x-axis needs to be my major axis because the ellipse stretches longer on the x-axis. But let's say you didn't know that. Let's say you just knew that the focus was 8, 0 and you weren't sure about negative 10, 0. You could go back a page to page 6 in your notes there, and you could look at your standard form of the ellipse, that chart on page 6. And what you would notice is that the focus, depending on whether you're horizontally, whether your major axis is horizontal or vertical, the focus is going to change. If it's horizontal, then your focus is going to have a C value that's in the X spot. So this is in the X spot. So you have an 8. So this one is definitely going to be horizontal. Identify the values of A and C. Well, A is going to correspond to your vertice. So in this case, A, if we go up, A is negative 10, and B, we don't know, but C we know, the focus is 8. So and that's all the information that I need to write the equation of this ellipse. So we're going to use c squared equals a squared minus b squared to find b squared. We don't want to find b, we want to find b squared. So let's be clear, we're not trying to find b, we're trying to find b squared. So use the equation c equals a squared minus b squared to find b squared. So I'm just going to plug in the values that I have. I have 8 squared equals negative 10 squared minus b squared. Simplifying, this is 64 equals 100 minus b squared. Solving this for b squared, you would subtract 100 from both sides, and you'd get negative 36 equals negative b squared. I want to get rid of the negative b squared because I just wanted to say b squared. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 1. Whoops. And that gives you 36 is b squared. So this is your b squared value. And I know that this graph, or this ellipse, is a horizontal ellipse. So the equation has to have the form x squared over a squared plus y squared over b squared equals 1. And again, that's just coming from the page 6 on that chart. That's where you find the equation of the ellipse. So now I'm left with plugging in values. I have x squared divided, so x squared divided by a squared, which is, we know a squared is negative 10 squared, plus y squared, we know b squared, the value of b squared is 36, and that equals 1. We can simplify this one step further as x squared over 100 plus y squared over 36 equals 1. And that would be the equation of your ellipse. So the next example they give us doesn't really give us, they give us the graph here, but they don't really tell us any points on the graph. Clearly the center is labeled. This is clearly 0, 0. So I'm just going to write center is at 0, 0. But that's about all we're given. So we're going to have to actually use this graph to tell us more about if we can find a vertex, a covertex, or a foci. Here we don't have the focus, either of the focuses given to us. So we're going to have to find the vertex and the covertex. So let's look and see where does this graph, let's start with the x-axis, let's say. Where does this graph hit the x-axis? And it obviously hits it in 2 points. I'm going to work with the positive direction though. So obviously they're going by 2. So 2, 4, 6. This point would probably be about 7. It doesn't make it all the way to 8. So this point is a point 7, 0. And then that means this point over here has to be negative 7, 0. So those are your vertex. That's your vertex. The other 2 points that we could possibly use are your covertex. So we're going to see how high up this goes on the y. So 2, 4, and this is going to be about 5. So clearly this is a horizontal ellipse. It's longer, slightly longer on the x than it is on the y. So this is the point 0, 5 and the point 0, negative 5. So I know the center. I know the vertex is the point, let's say 7, 0. And I know the covertex is the point, we'll just call it 0, 5. So we only need to use one of them, but they give us 2. So the vertex having at 7, 0 implies sort of 2 things. It's going to imply that A is first and foremost 7. It also is going to tell us that this is a horizontal ellipse, which we knew that. It was longer on the x than it is on the y. So the vertex at 7, 0 implies that A is 7. A covertex at 0, 5 implies that B equals 5. So this problem actually ends up being quite simple in the sense that now we just need to identify the form of the horizontal equation, and that's going to be x squared over a squared plus y squared over b squared equals 1. So that's the equation of a horizontal ellipse. And I know a and b, so I'm all set to go. I don't need to use that fancy c squared equals a squared minus b squared formula. I just got to plug in my values of a and b here. So it's going to be x squared over 7 squared plus y squared over 5 squared equals 1. And this means that I have x squared over 49 plus y squared over 25 equals 1. That's just simplifying your equation of your ellipse. So your equation will be x squared over 49 plus y squared over 25 equals 1. Your last example for the ellipses is if they give you the foci and they give you covertices, they want to know the equation of the ellipse. So if my foci, or my focus, let's choose 0, 3, just because I like working with positive numbers. So let's just choose 0, 3 as the focus. 0, 3 is going to imply that my focus, or my focus is at the point 0, 3. That's going to give us a C value is of 3. So remember, the focus is always going to correspond with a C value. And I'm given covertices, and I'm going to pick one. They give me 4, 0 and negative 4, 0, but I always like working with positive numbers, so I'm going to say 4, 0. And that implies that your A, sorry, not your A, your B equals 3. So your C is 3 and your B is, sorry, my mistake, 4. Your B is 4. So your covertex is 4 comma 0. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to find a squared, because that would allow us to write the equation of the ellipse. We always need to find a and b. That's always our goal. We want to find a and b, or we want to find a squared and b squared. That is always our goal. So we could sometimes use c to do that, and we're going to have to use c in this case. So we're going to need to find a squared. So just writing the equation, c squared equals a squared minus b squared. Since this equation relates your a, b, and c together, in this case, c is 3, so 3 squared equals, we don't know a squared, but we know b is 4. So that'll be minus 4 squared. So 3 squared is 9 equals a squared, and 4 squared is 16. So I have a squared minus 16 equals 9. I can solve this by adding 16 to both sides, rather. So that would give us 9 plus 16 is 25 equals a squared. Now, we didn't say whether this was a horizontal or a vertical ellipse. In this case, since your, doesn't matter which point you pick, you could say since your focus has 0 in the x spot, that means you should have a vertical ellipse. So this should be vertical, which means your equation of the ellipse should be y squared over a squared plus x squared over b squared equals 1. So this time your y squared is your longest axis, which is why it's going on top of the a squared. So we have y squared over 25 plus x squared over 4 squared is 16, and that equals 1. So this is the equation of your ellipse. It's y squared plus 25, sorry, y squared over 25 plus x squared over 16. And that's the equation of your ellipse. So this does it for the examples for section 10.3. If you have questions, please bring them with you.